All right, Rabbi, say good morning. Let's begin. A lot to do today. Today's daf is Mem Beis. We will, Emeres Hashem, finish the parak this morning. Very exciting. We are in the middle. Well, first of all, our shir this morning is dedicated. We have a monthly sponsor for the month of Iyar, an anonymous sponsor on the schus of Refuah Shlema for Tzvi Meir Halevi. Ben Sarleh, we hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, Tzvi Meir together with Kol Choli Yisrael have a complete and enduring refuah. And we'll say our shir this morning is also dedicated by Mrs. Rita Beck, the Wecker family, the Schloss family, the Sobel family, in memory of husband and father Seymour Beck, Shlomo Ben Chaim Tzvi. Zichron Levrach, we hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, Size and Shama will have an aliyah. All right, to both say let's begin. So, like I said, today's daf is Mem Beis 42. We are picking up Mem Aleph Amud Beis 41a at the two dots. V'chachamim omrim eno b'char. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Chisda. So Rav Chisda says as follows: Machlokes ba'androgynous. So we'll say we're still with the tumtum and androgynous. So there's the machlokes with androgynous. So we'll say we spent a significant amount of time focusing on this yesterday, namely the idea about what is an androgynous. Is androgynous male? Is it female? Is it a beria bifnei atzma, an entity unto itself? So that already we saw this machlokes yesterday. So Rav Chisda says, by the way, the machlokes only applies to androgynous. It does not apply to tumtum. But remember again, androgynous means the entity, the being, the person has both male and female reproductive organs. So therefore that's the shaila, what is it? Tumtum, however, again, there's only one set of reproductive organs, but they're covered over, they're obscured by some type of membrane, in which case you're unable to go ahead and tell the gender of the person. So Rav Chisda says the machlokes is only by an androgynous. Aval betumtum, when it comes to a tumtum, divrei hakol sveikahu, the kadosh misveika. Everyone agrees that a tumtum is a suffix, and at least again for Bukhar purposes, therefore, the animal will be kadosh misafek. What does it mean if the animal is kadosh misafek? Look at Rashi for just a moment. Aval tumtum divrei hakol safek va'aser begiza ve'ronishchat lo b'mikdash lo medina. And therefore, I will say what that means for our purposes is as follows: when it is a safek, that means that you cannot offer it up as a karban, you cannot check it outside of the Beis Hamikdash, and of course, it will be aser begiza uba avoda. You can't shear it, nor can you work it. Says the Gemara, Dirak kol sveiko v'kadosh misveiko. Amalei Rava. So Rava says, Elami ata be'erchin ya'arech. So we'll say if that's the case, Rava says, if that's the case, then you should be able to make an erech. Rava says actually this week's parsha. So remember again, erchin means you could pledge the value of someone or something to the Beis Hamikdash. If that's the case, that ultimately again, a tumtum is a suffix, right? Meaning again, I will say essentially when we say suffix, what does that mean practically? Practically means is we give this person the chumrus of both, or this entity, the chumrus of both a male and a female. So for example, by Bechor, so suffix means, again, I'm going to treat it like a male and a female. I can't offer it up as a karban because it may be a female. I can't shecht it outside of the Beis Hamikdash because it may be a male. I can't shecht it with a so that's what it means. We give it the chumrus. So if that's the case, says the Gemara, then halacha lemaisa. If you have a person who is a tumtum, you should be thou should work. But it doesn't. Alama Tanya, top of Mem Beis Aleph. Alama Tanya, hazachar v'lo tumtum va'androgynous. Both say the pasuk by Erchin says, "V'haya erkecha hazachar mi ben esen shana." Remember again, the way it works by Erchin is different ages and different genders have different monetary values. So the Gemara darshins when the pasuk says hazachar, if you pledge the value of a male, what does that come to exclude? A tumtum and an androgynous. So here you see, you can't pledge the value of an androgynous. To which the Gemara says, you're right, Sami mikan tumtum. No, remove tumtum from that list. It shouldn't say tumtum, instead it should just say what? It should just say androgynous. So the Gemara says, Tashma. So we'll say another statement. So remember again, what we're trying to do over here is halacha l'maisa, trying to understand the shita of Rav Chisda. So I have Rav Chisda going ahead and saying that tumtum is a suffix. Michael, I think it's in the box. It looks like it's standing up in the box back there. So ultimately, again, I see, so halacha l'maisa, again, I go ahead and I see a tumtum. So therefore the Gemara says, Rav Chisda saying tumtum is a suffix. The Gemara is saying if it's a suffix, you should be able to pledge its erech vow, to which the Gemara, Bryce quotes Gemara, Bryce that says you can't, to which the Gemara says remove tumtum from that list. Next, Tashma, Yachal lo yehe be'erech ish, ava yehe be'erech isha. So I might have thought that a tumtum ultimately again cannot be evaluated as a man, but maybe can be evaluated as a woman. Talmud Lomar, hazocher. Therefore, we'll say the pasuk says hazachar, and then says also im nekeva v'lo tumtum v'lo androgynous. So we'll say again from lashon of nekeva. I also learn that the halachos of erchin do not apply to a tumtum or an androgynous. To which the Gemara again says sami mikan tumtum. You're right. Remove tumtum from the list in order to allow this brisa to align with Rav Chisda. Another Gemara, another brisa. Tashma im shlamim im nekeva. We'll say this is by a carbon shlamim. Im zachar im nekeva. So by carbon shlamim, if getting, you can either offer up a male or a female. Zachar vadai, nekeva vadais. The only animal you could use for a shlamim is a definitively male animal or female animal. Velo tumtum va'androgynous. But you may not use a tumtum, nor may you use an androgynous. So also again, this would contradict Rav Chisda, to which again the Gemara says, Sami mikan tumtum. Remove tumtum from the list. Right? Just right. Androgynous, not tumtum. Okay. Tashmar another brisa. Zachar v'lo nekeva. So we'll say this is by an ola. By an ola, the Torah says a zachar. We dash in from that, not in nekeva. Kishi omer lemata zachar. But we'll say we saw this already in yesterday's daf. The Torah by a carbon ola, this says the word zachar twice. So the first zachar I understand comes to teach me what? The first zachar comes to teach me zachar v'lo nekeva. It has to be a male animal and not a female. But why does it say zachar a second time? Shein Talmud Lomar. Why does the second zachar needed? So the Gemara says lahotzi tumtum v'androgynous. To go ahead and what? Remove, to tell you that you cannot use a tumtum, nor can you use an androgynous for a carbon ola. To which the Gemara again says, according to Rav Chisda, Sami mikan tumtum. Remove tumtum from this list and say that the exclusion just applies to an androgynous. Okay, Tashma, another case. Rabbi say again, just so we're clear, all we're trying to focus on here over here is as follows. Rav Chisda is one who came along and said the whole machlokes regarding identity, right, gender identity, is regarding a androgynous. When it comes to a tumtum, everyone agrees it's a suffix. To which the Gemara says, okay, if it's a suffix, Rabbi say that means that any situation where ultimately, again, the Torah requires a specific gender, so a tumtum should be treated l'chumra. Yet, we're seeing all of these cases where tumtum is excluded, to which the Gemara essentially says that according to Rav Chisda, in all of these cases, you will remove tumtum from these lists, and these halachos will only apply to androgynous. So the Gemara says, Vaiter, Tashma, Ha-ne'evad v'ha-muktzah. So we'll say another grouping of animals. Ne'evad means an animal worshipped for avodah zarah. Muktzah means an animal that is set aside for avodah zarah. Esnon means an animal that was given to a harlot as payment for her services. Mechir keleb. Mechir means an animal that was sold or exchanged for a dog. V'tumtum v'androgynous, or a tumtum and an androgynous. Kulun metamin begodim abeis habliya. So we'll say, we're switching gears for just a moment over here. All of these items, if we're talking about birds now, take a look at Rashi for just a moment. Metamin begadim abeis habliya, it's right across, almost right across in the Gemara, in Rashi, excuse me. Metamin begadim abeis habliya, kishar nevelas ha'oftar. So we'll say, remember again, this is talking about situations where the animal in question is a bird. So remember again, if you go ahead and you consume a nevela of a bird, it conveys tumah to your clothing while it is in the beis habliya, while ultimately, again, it's in your throat. Even before you fully swallow it, once it's in your throat, it conveys tumah to clothing. So Rashi says over here, Kishan nevelas oftar demili kasa ena malika v'havi nevela v'ilav beryahu amai ena malika manafshach im zachahu kasher v'im nekeva hari kasher da ba'ofos lochilek hakasav. So we'll say, here's the issue. If at the end of the day, we're talking about, again, a bird, if you did malika on any of these birds, salach l'maisa, and you were to go ahead and consume the bird, it would convey tumah to your clothing. Why? Because malika doesn't do anything for these birds. Why doesn't Malika do anything for these birds? Because halacha l'maaseh, they are sacrificially unfit. The only time that Malika removes nevela status from a bird is when ultimately the bird is fit for sacrificial use. If the bird is not fit for sacrificial use, even if you did Malika, it's still an avela. If it's an avela, then once you ingest it, it conveys tumah to your clothing. What's included in this list over here? A tumtum. Of tumtum. So you clearly see over here, so now watch this, it's actually very interesting. Sefer of Chisti, you're right, that a tumtum is a safek. So mimanaf shach, a tumtum bird in which you did malika should not convey tumas nevela. Why not? Because by birds, by anything, any offer or any sacrifice, any karbanos that have to do with birds, they are gender neutral. Gender neutral, right? Birds, right? Whenever you have a carbon that's a bird, it's always gender neutral. If that's the case, then malika on a bird should remove the nevela status. And if you were to go ahead and consume a tumtum bird after malika, it should not convey tumah. Yet halacha l'maaseh, tumtum is part of this list. To which the Gemara says, Rabbi Lazar Omer, tumtum va'adrogenous in mitam begada beis habliya. Shei Rabbi Lazar Omer, kol makom shene'emar zachar unekeva. Atamotze tumtum va'androgynous beinehem. Rabbi Lazar is of the opinion that no, tumtum and androgynous birds do not convey tumah and a beis habliya. If you did malika, why Rabbi Lazar says? Because anytime the Torah says zachar and nekeva, that automatically excludes tumtum and androgynous. But by oath, hoyil v'lo ne'emar bo zachar nekeva. But by oath, just like we said before, since again there's no distinction between zachar and nekeva by sacrificial purposes for birds, einatamotzi tumtum va'androgynous beinehem. You do not have to remove tumtum and androgynous ultimately again from the category. Einachinami, Rabbi Lazar holds that halacha l'maaseh, if you were to go ahead and do malika on a tumtum and androgynous bird, and then were to go ahead and consume it, it would not convey tumas nevela. To which the Gemara says, in order to reconcile this brayso according to Rav Chisda, sami mikan tumtum. Einachinami, remove tumtum from this listing as well. Fine. Tashma, another brayso. Rabbi Lazar Omer, hatreifa v'hakelayim v'yotze dofen, tumtum v'androgynous, lo kidoshim v'lo makadishim. What's another interesting halacha? So Rabbi Lazar says as follows: treifa, which is okay, we know an animal that's a treifa. Kilayim means an animal that is a product of crossbreeding. Yotze dofen, an animal that is born in cesarean section. Tumtum and androgynous. Lo kidoshim. So we'll say number one, lo kidoshim means that they cannot be sanctified. These animals cannot become sacrificially sanctified. V'lo makadishin. So ultimately, we'll see what that means in just a moment, but it's actually going to be a reference to Timura. V'amar Shmuel, what does that mean? Lo kidoshim b'timura, v'lo makdishin la'asos timura. Supposed to listen to this. Lo kidoshim b'timura means that I can't substitute them for another animal. Which means, halacha l'maaseh, if I went ahead and I consecrated an animal, and then I want to swap it for a tumtum, that swap does not work. Remember again, it's actually this week's parasha as well. So remember, what's the halachos of Timura? So Timura says you are not allowed to swap out an animal you designated as a karban. And if you do try to swap it out, then what occurs? V'hayahus muraso kodesh la'Hashem. Both animals become kodesh. So Shmuel saying that Rabbi Lazar is teaching me two things. Number one, that you cannot go ahead and swap in any of these animals for an already sanctified animal. And if you do, the halachos of Timura do not take effect. And halacha l'maaseh, if you somehow sanctified one of these animals, you cannot create a Timura situation with them. So let me illustrate this a little bit better. So just using tumtum as the example for just a moment. If I went ahead and I consecrated animal A, regular animal A, and then I decide, you know what, I don't want to offer up A, I want to offer up tumtum animal. So I decide, A, I'm not offering you, instead I'm offering up tumtum animal. That's a case of Timura. I'm trying to swap the Timura animal with the original animal. So Shmuel explains, such a Timura does not work. Why? Because Timura only works where what? When what? When the replacement animal is sacrificially fit, thank you. Sacrificially fit. But in this case over here, the tumtum animal is not sacrificially fit. Similarly, if you have a tumtum animal that is kadosh, if you have a tumtum animal ultimately again that is sanctified, and you want to go ahead and exchange another animal for that tumtum animal, that tamura does not work. And I know what you're thinking, but how can you ever have a tumtum animal that is sanctified? So it happens with vlade hekdish. If, let's say again, the tumtum was born to a sacrificial animal itself, let's say the tumtum's mother was a karban. Remember again, any animal that is born to a sacrificial animal by definition is endowed with sacrificial sanctity. So you could have a situation of a tumtum animal which ultimately again was sanctified. See, either way, this animal cannot become a tamura, nor can it create a tamura. So what do you see from here? You see from here that a tumtum is not a safek. Remember again, if a tumtum was a safek, then it should create a safek tumura situation. But it doesn't. Look at Rashi. Lo kidoshim b'tamura. Rashi says, Kilo ma'afilu tamura shechala ba'amum kavoa ino chala aleim v'lo maktishim b'asei tamura shem hayu kidoshin ein osin tamura. So both say salachal ma'is. You see from here that a tumtum is not treated like a safek. To which again the Gemara is according to Rav Chisda, Sami mikan tumtum. Take tumtum off this list. Okay, Tashma. Rabbi Lazar Omer, Chamisha lo kidosha v'lo makdishim. There are 5 animals, we'll say, that cannot become consecrated, nor can they make others consecrated, which again it means the same thing. That meaning they cannot become korbanos, nor they cannot become a tamura, nor can they make something else into a tamura. And these are they: ve'eluhein, hatrefa, v'hakilayim, v'hayotze dofen, v'tumtum, v'androgynous. We'll say now here, Rabbi Elazar is saying 5 animals which themselves cannot create a tamura situation, nor can they become a tamura animal. And what are they? The trefa, kilayim, C-section, tumtum, androgynous. So maybe, okay, so we'll say we kind of have like a canned answer over here for all of these cases. What's the canned answer we've been using every single time? Remove tumtum. That's not so pashut here. Why? Havalu arba. Because we'll remember again, Rabbi Elazar was explicit in saying that halacha l'maisa it is 5 animals. If you remove 1, that only makes it 4. Here, the difference in this brisa is Rabbi Elazar is giving a number-specific ruling. Apik tumtum va'al yasum. The truth is, you could take out tumtum and instead replace it with yasum. I will say, what's the yasum? Case look at Rashi. Yasum dami lahanach shapsulin mishenoldu vehechi dami yasum ked mefarish b'shchita schulin beperek sheni shemesi ima b'shas leida ze parish lemisa v'ze parish lechaim. So what's actually interesting is this is a case of an animal whose mother died in childbirth. So again, in order for an animal to be sacrificially fit, it has to be alive for at least one moment at the same time as its mother when it comes into this world. If the mother dies in childbirth, so that the point where the animal lived, where the animal was born, the mother was already dead, such an animal is sacrificially unfit, for reasons the Gemara explains. Therefore, the Gemara suggests that according to Rav Chisda, you would remove tumtum and instead substitute yasam. So we'll say, it must be that this whole thing is a machlokes tanaim. Rav Chisda's statement, remember again, Rav Chisda comes along and says, everyone agrees that, or I should say, the machlokes is by androgynous, but everyone agrees that tumtum is safek. To which the Gemara says, well, maybe this is machlokes tanaim. Here we go. Rabbi Eloi or Mishum Rabbi Shmuel, androgynous bacharhu umumo imo. So remember again, when it comes to androgynous, Rabbi Shmuel holds that an androgynous is a male. Right, we treat androgynous as male, but we treat it as a male with a mum. Right, we look at the female reproductive organs that are there in the animal as a mum in the animal, and therefore halacha l'maisa it's a zachar, but you're permitted to shat because of the mum. The chacham say in kedusha chala alav. Chacham say no, androgynous is an entity unto itself. And because it is an entity unto itself, therefore what? It has no kiddushas bachar at all. Rabbi Shimon Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Shimon Hariyu Omer Hazachar V'chol Makom Shneimar Zachar Eino Ela Lahotzi Tumtum V'Androgynous. Rabbi Shimon says the pasuk by Bechar says Hazachar. Whenever you see the word Zachar, Zachar is coming to exclude Tumtum and androgynous. Maybe you'll say ultimately I should take away tumtum from this list. Rabbi Shimon Yehuda Hainu Rabbanon. If that's the case, Rabbi Shimon Yehuda would be saying the same thing as the Rabbanon. Elalav tumtum ika beinayu. Rather, it must be Rabbi say that the status of a tumtum is in and of itself the subject of dispute. The Tana Kama Savar in Kiddush Shechala Alov androgynous. So I'll say ultimately, and the Tanakama holds that when we say that no Kedusha devolves upon the animal, that's dafka speaking about an androgynous. Aval tumtum sveikohi v'kadosh misveika. But you must see the position of the Tanakama, of the Chachamim, is that what? Is that androgynous, Rabbosai, is the beria bifnei atzma. But tumtum is a suffix. So androgynous is its own category. It's neither male nor female, it's something separate. Tumtum is a suffix. Tumtum is a suffix. Now both say, remember again, suffix is the most difficult status, right? Why? Because essentially suffix, we have to give you the chumras of everything, of male and female. So va'asar b'shimon, Amid days, va'asar b'shimon ben Yehuda Meimar, and both say, Shimon Yehuda comes along and says, Tumtum ber Yehu v'lo kadosh. And both say, Shimon Yehuda comes along and says, no, Tumtum is its own entity as well. Tumtum is its own category. So both say, so perhaps this is the fundamental machlokes here. The Tanakama holds that let's take androgynous off the table for now, right? Because androgynous, kind of the machlokes is quite explicit and clear. That we know, we have three machlokes. But leaving aside androgynous, the Tanakama holds that tumtum is a suffix. Tumtum is a suffix, and therefore I will say with all the different things. Therefore, by bechar, just for our purposes, what happens if you have a tumtum bechar? What's the status of that animal? So remember again, essentially you can't really do anything with it. You can't offer it up in the Beis HaMikdash because it might be a female. You can't go ahead and shecht it outside of the Beis HaMikdash because it may be a male. So pretty much there's nothing to do with that particular animal. That's the Tanakama. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda will say, Tumtum is a beria bifnei atzma. It is its own independent gender class. It's not male and it's not female. Therefore, both say by Bechar it poses no problem. Why? Because it's not a Bechar. It's not a Bechar. You can do whatever it's a regular animal. You can do whatever you want with it. To which the Gemara says, lo. I don't agree with this. The Gemara says, D'chuli alma tumtum beberia tumtum. I'm sorry. The Kuli Alma, Tumtum Beveria Lo Mesapka. So the Gemara says, in reality, Zachar Nekevahu. So ultimately, again, everyone agrees that ultimately there is no suffix when it comes to Tumtum. The Mesapka Matil. So listen to this. So the Gemara says, Matil Mai B'Makom Zichrus. I'm sorry, I skipped the line here. Did I skip here? I'm sorry, Tumtum ber Yehu v'lo kadosh. So the Gemara says lo. The Chuli Alma. So the Gemara says Tumtum beberia lo mesapka. Zachar unekevahu. So listen to this. Matil mai b'makom zechros. The Chuli Alma lo pligi de zacharu. Ki pligi b'matil mai b'makom nakva. So we'll say this is very interesting now. So the Gemara wants to suggest that maybe there is a way to determine ultimately the gender of the tumtum. What do we look at? How does the animal urinate? If the animal urinates from a spot on the body that would indicate that it has male anatomy, then halacha l'maisa, it's a male. If it urinates from a spot on the body that ultimately indicates that it has female anatomy, then it's a female. So the Gemara says, ultimately, again, there is a way to go ahead and discern this. To which the Gemara says again, Matil mai b'makom zichris t'kuli amalo pligi de zachar. If it urinates like a male, then it's a male. So the Gemara says, Matil mai b'makom zichris t'kuli amalo pligi de zacharu. Ki pligi. So we'll say, now watch this. I'm sorry, let me clarify this in just a moment. If it urinates like a male, so the Gemara says everyone will agree. So just to understand, anatomically, if it goes ahead and it urinates like a male, so the assumption is male anatomy is further forward on the underside of the animal, right? And therefore, again, it will urinate. I guess I don't know what this is helping really, but you understand, right? Right? Good. Right? As opposed to female anatomy, which ultimately will have it urinating more towards the backside of the animal. So the Gemara says like this: if it urinates, enough said, right? If it urinates, but we call them makom zichrus. That's a pretty solid indication that it's a male animal. Where does the machlokes come up? Ki pligi, b'matal mayim b'makom nikvos. Now both say, here's what's interesting. Where does the machlokes come up? If it urinates from a part of the body that would seem to be indicative of female anatomy. Now why would that be a machlokes? This is fascinating. Mar savar chayshion shema nepcha zichruso l'nikvuso. Remember again, in the case of the tumtum, so the reproductive organs are covered by some type of membrane. So the shaila is, so when it urinates from an area, when it urinates in a way that clearly indicates that there's male anatomy, so there's really no suffix over there, it's a male. If it urinates from an area where there's female, where there could be female anatomy, the shaila is it urinating from that spot because it has female anatomy? Or has the membrane essentially pushed back the male anatomy so that it's pointed, so to speak, backwards on the animal, and therefore it's urinating from that spot towards the back of the animal, but it really is still anatomically male. That's the shaila. That's the shaila. So the Gemara will say, so the fundamental machlokes is, if the animal urinates like a female, so do we assume if it urinates like a female, then it's a female? Or are we choshish that maybe the membrane has pushed back the male member, and therefore it really is anatomically male, but urinating from that spot because the membrane is pushing back the male reproductive organ. So we'll say that's the fundamental machlokes. So we'll say, so here's the good news. The good news in this approach, so just in the same, we have two mahalchim. In the first approach, tumtum was a suffix. In the second approach, tumtum is not a suffix. Tumtum has a definitive gender. What's our problem? We don't know what it is. So the Gemara says, well, that's not totally true. If the animal urinates like a male, then halacha l'maisa we're pretty good on saying that it's a male. If it urinates like a female, that's where there is still a machlokes. Ultimately, again, is this a female or is it a male with kind of bent back anatomy? So the Gemara says, Taiba Rabbi Yochanan, man delo chash l'tanakama ul Rabbi Yishmael. So Rabbi Yochanan says, I don't understand. I'm sorry, I skipped the line again. Ki had dehora Rabbi Elazar, bebehema matel mayim b'makom nakvos chulin. So we'll say this is in accordance to Rabbi Elazar holds. He held that halacha l'maisa that an animal that urinated like a female was chulin, meaning that by bechor, if you had an animal that urinated like a female, ultimately, Rabbi Elazar said that if it urinates like a female, it's a female. So we'll say obviously he's weighing in on this. And he's saying the same way that if an animal urinates like a male, it's a male. If it urinates like a female, it's a female. And what? He was not worried that maybe the membrane is bending back the male anatomy. So Rabbi Yochanan wondered about this. I don't understand. Could he be so dismissive of the positions ultimately of the Tanakam Rabbi Shmuel? But why is Rabbi Yochanan just worried about those two positions? Why isn't he worried also about the position of the Rabbanan Basrai? Rav Chisda, machlokes ba'androgynous. Rav Chisda said the machlokes applies by androgynous. Aval betumtum divrei hakol sveika. Both again, but by tumtum, you see there is an opinion that says that a tumtum is a suffix. Rabbi Yochanan lo svir le Rav Chisda. So we'll say ultimately again, Rabbi Yochanan does not hold of this position of Rav Chisda. Ilo svir le mohudu amar kirabanan basrai. So if that's the case, doesn't hold Rav Chisda. Maybe he holds like the latter position of the Rabbanan basrai. Hachinami kamar. This is what he means to say. Man shavik trei va'avid kichad. Ultimately, what he was really saying is as follows: is why would he abandon the position held by two opinions and align himself with a position only held by one? Rabbi Elazar, actually, this is changed. To Rabbi Eloi, changes Rabbi Eloi, Kiman Savra. Who does Rabbi Eloi hold like? Kihad Amarei Shlakish. So like the following of Rabbi Shlakish. Lo amru tumtum safek ella ba'adam. So we'll say, when do we say that tumtum is a safek? That's only by a human being. Horo v'zichruso unikevuso b'makom echad. See, I was saying the reason by a person why tumtum ultimately is suffix is because halacha l'maisa, right? The male and female anatomy is in the same spot on the body. So because of that, mamish is a suffix. Ava behema. So both say. So here's the difference. You see, male and female, because ultimately again the reproductive organs are on the same spot of the body. If an entity, right? If a person has both, that's why the tumtum is a suffix. Ava behema, when it comes to an animal, we'll say the anatomy is not in the same place. Behema, matel mayim b'makom zichrus zachar, matel mayim b'makom nekevos nekeva. We'll say he comes along the Gemara and says, Rabbi Eloi says, he'll hold when it comes to an animal, there is a way to discern. So you will say the problem with an animal is you have a membrane that covers over this entire part of the body. So let's say again, for argument's sake, we'll call spot A is where male anatomy would be, spot B is where female anatomy would be. There's a membrane that covers that whole area. So I can't tell the gender of the animal. But Lamaisa, again, says Rabbi Eloi, there is a way to be able to tell where this animal is holding. One simple test, how does it urinate? If it urinates like a male, then it's a male. If it urinates like a female, it's a female. To which the Gemara says, Maskef Raboshia. Shema Napcha Zichrusa Lenekevusa. Rabbi says again, Rabbi, why aren't we concerned that maybe the membrane is going ahead and pushing the male anatomy back? So that's why, even though again the animal is urinating from what we'll call makom nakvus, in a way that a woman would urinate or a female would urinate, at the end of the day, that's only because the male anatomy is pushed back, not because it's a female. To which the Gemara says, so also listen to this. Amalei Kiman. So let's analyze this. Why would you be choshesh for that? So Kiman, Kirab Meir, Dichayesh Lemiuta. You see, Rabbi say this would only be a problem. Now, understand, Rabbi say. So what the Gemara is saying is like this. Listen, a tumtum is an interesting case as it is. In general, we would assume that the way this works is the membrane goes ahead and kind of locks in everything where it is, right? It's not moving stuff around, it just locks it in where it is. So therefore I would say, logic would say that halacha l'maisa, if it urinates like a female, it's a female. If it urinates like a male, it's a male. And I'm not choshesh that the membrane is pushing back male anatomy towards the back of the animal. So we'll say, but who would hold that maybe it's a problem? Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir in general is the one who is choshesh l'miut. He is generally the one ultimately again who is choshesh even for uncommon circumstances. So maybe Rabbi Meir would hold that enachinami, as unlikely as this would be, if there is a possibility that the membrane is pushing back the male anatomy towards the back of the body, therefore urinating like a female would not necessarily be indicative that it is a female. It's also that it's a male with bent back anatomy. So Abai bar Abin Rab Chananya bar Av Namri Tarbayu Afilu Temur Rabbanan. The truth is, in this case, maybe even the Rabbanan would be choshesh that the membrane pushes male anatomy back. Why? Well, it's actually very interesting. Hoil v'ishtani ishtani. We'll say, because maybe we say, once there's a shinui, we have to be choshesh for all types of shinui. We'll say, it's actually quite a fascinating concept. As we'll say, generally we assume that the world works a certain way. That's the principle of chazaka is, right? Chazaka tells you that if things are a certain way, they will remain that way. That's the, until when? Until you know that it changes. So it says, here's the interesting question. If you have an aberration, right? You have an anomalous, right? An anomalous situation. So it says, so the shaila is, do you say that since you're already betoras anomaly, you have to be choshesh for other anomalies as well? Or do we say no? The only anomaly we look at is the one right in front of us. We don't assume for anomaly on top of anomaly. We'll say, to understand, by the way, it's like it's a very yesodistic life question as well. We all experience situations of dramatic upheaval and dramatic change. So do you assume that in moments of dramatic upheaval and change that everything is changed, everything is different, everything is difficult? Or no, like this is the problem. Let's not let the problem get away from us and become globalized. This is Maisim B'chol Yom. People experience a challenge in life, and what happens? The sky is falling. Everything is, no, not everything is terrible. There's a challenge. There's one thing that's problematic. There's one thing that's problematic. Everything else is okay. Let's focus on the one thing that's broken. So let's say, mamish, it's machlokes in the Gemara. Do you say, hoil ishtani? Do you say, well, hold on a second. No. Once something is kind of thrown into upheaval, everything is in upheaval. Or no, when something is in upheaval, that thing is in upheaval, but everything else is still a constant. So we'll say, incredible fundamental life machlokes. Who would have thought? Daf Mem Beis in the middle of Maseches Bechoros. Life advice, right? Life hashkafas. So the Gemara says, Leima shtani v'lo shtani tanoi. We'll say, first wide line, Mem Beis on Beis. So we'll say, perhaps this is actually a machlokes tanoi. We'll say, it's fascinating. Again, do we say, Hoil v'ishtani or ishtani v'lo ishtani? So we'll say, so do we say, Ultimately, well, actually, I didn't finish this off. So the Gemara says, "Afilu timar abanan hove ishtani is damri ishtani ve'is damri lo ishtani lima ishtani v'lo ishtani tani." So let's say this is my chalukis. So just to understand how you apply this to this case. An animal that is a tumtum is a shinui. This is a non-normal situation. So do we say that once we have one shinui that it's a tumtum, that I should be choshesh for what? For what? For what? A second shinui. What's the second shinui? That the membrane is pushing back male anatomy. So now it's urinating like a female, but it's not really a female. Do I say no? I'm choshesh for one shinui. It's a tumtum, but I'm not choshesh for the second shinui that the male anatomy is pushed back. So Gemara says, "Is machlokes tonight?" Watch this. This time we'll say wild case. Tumtum shekidesh. So we'll say now. Let's say you have a tumtum that was mekadesh a woman, right? A tumtum that was mekadesh a woman. You know, it just never came up. It just never came up, right? So tumtum was mekadesh a woman. So what happens? Shekidesh, kiddush of kiddushin. Both sides, kiddushin is a valid kiddushin. Niskadesh, similarly, if somebody was mekadesh a tumtum, kiddush of kiddushin, the kiddushin works. Now, Rabbi say, what does that mean? The kiddushin works. What that means is, Rabbi say that halacha lemaisa. If you look at Rashi, shekidish kiddush of kiddushin l'chumra utzricha get shemazachar. Rabbi say we won't allow this marriage to go ahead and go forward, right? Because we're not sure. It's a suffix about the gender of a tumtum. But lemaisa again l'chumra we will say the kiddushin works, and therefore the tumtum would be obligated to give the woman a get. Conversely, right, if somebody was makadesh a tumtum, so michumra we would say the kiddushin works, and we would obligate the man to give the tumtum a get. Furthermore, the choletz, I will say again, if there's a situation ultimately again where the tumtum is the surviving sibling of a man who died without children, let's say he's young, we would force him to we'd make him do chalitza with the yavama. The chotzin leishto, and if the tumtum was married to a man, was married to a woman and dies without children, ultimately again we would make one of the tumtum's surviving brothers do chalitza with his wife. And ultimately again, Rashi says over here, miyamin li'ishto, it's the fifth wide line. In Rashi, Manavshach, izachu shapir miyavim achav, v'mnekevu ishta ba'amo dinasev hayachav shal tumtum. So I'll say ultimately again, actually we would allow one of the surviving brothers to go ahead and do yibum with his wife as well. Manavshach, if he's a male, then he died without children. If he's a female, then there was never a marriage there to begin with, and therefore the surviving brother is permitted to marry the wife. Okay, so we'll say, that's first brisa. That's first brisa. Tanya idach, another brisa. Eishes tumtum choleses v'lo misyavemes. Second brisa also says that the wife of a tumtum can have chalitza, but not yibum. So the Gemara says over here. So we'll say, so now we have two contradictory brises. In brisa number 1 we allow yibum. Brisa number 2 we don't allow yibum. Savur decholi amak Rabbi Akiva damer sris chamalo cholitzio miyabim. So let's listen to this. Again, there's a lot of information coming our way now. Rabbi Akiva holds there's something called the sris chama. Sris chama means someone who was born sterile. Someone who was born sterile. Nothing happened, they were just born sterile. It's called sris chama. So Rabbi Akiva holds that a sris chama is not allowed to do yibum or chalitza, which we'll say the logic over here is as follows: is that halacha lemaisa, the din of yibum is what purpose? Lahakim zera lachim, right? To go ahead and establish offspring for the deceased brother. If the surviving brother is incapable of having children, then halacha lemaisa, again, there is no din of yibum, says Rabbi Akiva. Look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi says, "Sris chamel lochozom yavim ve'ishto lo choletes v'lo mesyabemes shelo haisa shas." Similarly, again, watch this. Not only can a sris chamel not do yibum and not do chalitza, but if the sris was married and he dies, obviously with what? Without children, so there is no din of yibum by his wife, by his widow, which makes sense. Why? Because remember again, the whole point of Yibum is to do for the brother what he was unable to do for himself. He wasn't able to have a family, so therefore again, the surviving brother is going to create a family on his deceased brother's behalf. If the deceased brother was never able to have a family, therefore again, there is no din Yibum by the surviving brothers. This is Rabbi Akiva. So the Gemara says, "My love ba'akamiflagi." What are the brises arguing about? Demand da'amar choletz v'chotzin lishto miyam misishto. Lo amrinan hoil v'ishtani shenabo say. Now watch this. Watch this. So we'll say. So now, what's the fundamental machlokes? Do we assume, right? So listen, a tumtum. We're not sure what a tumtum is. Do we automatically assume that if a tumtum were to be a male, that he would be a sris? Do we assume that if he were to be a male, they would automatically be sterile? Which Rabbi says. So the answer to that is it depends. Do you say hoil v'ishtani ishtani? Once we encounter such an anomaly, we have to be choshesh for all anomalies. Once you're a tumtum, we're going to be choshesh that maybe, again, there's another issue, maybe you're a sris also. If you're a sris, then ultimately, again, the most we could allow to happen is chalitza, not yibum. Or do we say no? Hoil v'ishtani, lo ishtani, we don't say. And therefore what? You're a tumtum, but there's no reason for us to automatically assume that you are a sris as well. So watch this. So Lona says you can do chalitza and yibum. So he says, Lo amrin and hoel v'ishtani ishtani. We don't say that just because you've had one anomaly, we assume other anomalies as well. In other words, we don't assume that just because you are a tumtum, that we have to be choshesh or sris as well. Umandam recholet says v'lo misyabemes, but the mandam says chalitza and not yibum. Amrin and hoel v'ishtani ishtani. That opinion will say, once we see an anomaly, we have to be choshesh for all anomalies. Therefore, once we see that you're a tumtum, ultimately we're choshesh that you're a sris chama as well. To which the Gemara says, "Lo, that's actually not the machlokis over here." In fact, everyone holds hol v'ishtani. We'll say once a situation presents with one anomaly, we have to be choshesh for all anomalies. But so what's the distinction in the brises? Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Akiva. I both say two different opinions, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. Uzi Gemara says, let's listen to this. So look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi says, Lo duchuli alma savri. Look at Rashi. Lo duchuli alma aminon shema shtani. U'misaklo misris chama. Father misyavemes Rabbi Eliezer da'amar perika arel. Eishes rischama misyavemes. Shekein b'minon misrapin ba'alach zanju shamusar. We'll say this is amazing. Does a machlokes? Does a sris chama do yibum or not? Rabbi Akiva says no. Rabbi Eliezer says yes. And why is that, Rabbi? So listen to this. Because apparently, a sris chama, they treated infertility. They treated male infertility. Where was the best male infertility clinic? In Alexandria. In Alexandria, they treated male infertility. Therefore, Rabbi Elazar says this condition can be treated because it can be treated. Therefore, what halacha lamaisa even as sris chama does yibum. Therefore, we'll say that's the reconciliation between the brises. The brisa that says that ultimately, again, we do not go. You see, we'll say according to this approach, we will assume that halacha lamaisa, everyone agrees that hol v'ishtani, which means once the guy presents as a tumtum, we assume that he is a sris chama as well. So why the distinction in the brises? The brisa that says that he can't do yibum, that's a opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva holds that someone who is sterile from birth does not do yibum. And we don't do yibum on his wife. Ultimately, again, the other opinion is Rabbi Eliezer says even someone who's a sris chama, that is a treatable condition, and therefore, again, is in the parsha of yibum. So the Gemara says, Uman Tana Alibud Rabbi Akiva. Israel will say, who is the Tana who aligns with Rabbi Akiva? Either Rabbi Huda, right? Either, if you want to say it's Rabbi Huda, Havadai Sris Mashvile. So ultimately, again, he goes ahead and treats him like a Vadai Sris. Tisnan, Rabbi Huda Omer, Tumtum Shenikra V'Nimtza Zachar. Well, so that's Rabbi Huda says, if a tumtum, if you opened up the membrane, it turns out, Mazel Tov, that he's a Zachar. Hare Ze Lo Yachlots. Ultimately, again, he still doesn't do chalitza. Why? Mipnei shu kisaris. Because at the end of the day, we treat him like a Rabbi Huda holds that halacha l'maisa, he's a saris, right? Even if it turns out that he's a bona fide zachar, right? Mamish anatomically now we know that he's no more something. We know that he's a zachar. We treat him like a saris, and therefore, again, according to Rabbi Huda, in line with Rabbi Akiva's position, he's a sris. And Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, this Sanya, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda Omer Tumtum lo yachlots shema yikra v'yimtza sris chama. So Rabbi Yosef Yehuda holds that a tumtum cannot do chalitza. Why? Because it may happen that she'll go ahead and open up the membrane, and if it turns out that ultimately, even if he's a male, he may be a sris chama. Otu called the mikra zachar mishtachach, nekeva mishtachach. I don't understand. Every time you open up the membrane, it's definitely a male. Maybe it'll be a female. Shema ka'amar. Rather, it's a maybe. It's a maybe. Shema yikra v'yimtze nekeva. Number one, again, maybe, the reason why a tumtum does not do chalitza is because, again, at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, maybe you'll open up the membrane, it'll be a female, in which case if it's a female, there's obviously no chalitza. Inami zachar. Maybe the other possibility is it'll be a male, but what? Shema yimatze sris chama. Maybe ultimately, again, it'll be a sris. Maybe it'll be a sris. To which the Gemara says, "My benas." So we'll say, what is the practical difference? Look at Rashi. My benas ben Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi betumtum shemes echav hatarai lo yachal. So we'll say, if that's the case, both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi are saying the same exact thing, which is that if you have a tumtum, right, the tumtum does not do chalitza. Right, if the tumtum has a brother and the brother died without children, so ultimately, again, the tumtum does not do chalitza. What's the nafkamina between the two opinions? Amarav, both side top of mem gimel. Let's finish. Nafkamina lifso b'makom achim. Number one, I will say is halacha l'maisa. If there are other brothers, the tumtum has other brothers, but the tumtum went ahead and what? The tumtum did chalitza first. Does the chalitza of the tumtum ultimately go ahead and prevent the other brothers from doing yibum? Take a look at the top Rashi and Gimel Amud Aleph. Im yesh imo achim hagunim v'halachu v'chalasal. So I'll say, if let's say there were other brothers who were fit for yibum or chalitza, and the tumtum goes ahead and proactively does chalitza, the Rabbi Yehuda lav klum avad v'lo. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the actions of the tumtum are meaningless, and one of the other brothers can go ahead and still go ahead and do chalitza or yibum. Or do yibum, I should say. And according to Rabbi Yossi would say such an act is safek, and therefore none of the other brothers would be able to do yibum. Furthermore, another example, and we'll say furthermore, again, let's say the tumtum is the only surviving sibling. What do we tell the tumtum to do yibum or not? There's nothing to do. We don't have that tumtum do anything. According to Rabbi Yossi, ultimately we would have the tumtum do chalitza misafek. So we'll say, we'll stop over here for today. Here's what I owe you. What I owe you, will say, is we need incredible resolution. Because what we still don't know what to do with is what? So what is the status of tumtum and androgynous vis-a-vis bachar, vis-a-vis karbanos, vis-a-vis kiddushin, vis-a-vis chalitza and yibum? And Yirtzeh Hashem, we'll resolve all of that tomorrow. Hadrin alach elu mumin, I will say mazel tov. Shkoyach.